we are joined from Washington, D.C. by Asia One correspondent Jagruti. Thank you, Jagruti, for joining us here on Asia One. Well, my first question to you, Jagruti, tonight goes, well, we know Trump has announced to reinstate Iran blockade in Hormuz, as we reported also today already in breaking news. Do you have any more information about this announcement?
Well, other than what the president has posted on Truth Social, we are just hearing this as it unfolds, and it's a fast-moving story. You know, we've been having days of mixed messages on the Strait from both Iran and the US, with Iran saying that it controls the Strait and that the Strait is closed, and the US and the president and that Truth Social saying the Hormuz Strait is open and will remain open with or without Iran. He says that the blockade on Iranian ports is back, and this idea of charging 20% on all cargo shipped for any and all costs necessary to do the job of providing safety and security to this very volatile part of the world. That is to start immediately, but the process for that is unclear. And remember, when Iran mooted the idea of tolls, the US and other countries were in uproar over this, saying that there shouldn't be tolls on Hormuz because it's an international waterway and there's the possibility that it counters international law. And so here we have the US now, the president announcing a 20% charge on ships passing through the strait. So it's unclear if other countries are going to be willing to pay this charge, given that they were very antagonistic towards the prospect of Iran charging those tolls. But it's unclear how, as I say, this process would be implemented, how the policing of that would work. And so here we have a latest development here announced by the president via social media.
And Jagruti, Trump also says the U.S. will run Strait of Hormuz and get paid for it. What are you hearing from officials in Washington about how serious this, let's call perhaps guardian angel plan actually is?
Yes, the president has, as I mentioned, been very critical of Iran when Iran was suggesting that it could charge tolls on the Strait of Hormuz. Remember, the Strait is this crucial stretch of waterway that accounts for 20% of the world's oil trade. And Iran has effectively put a chokehold on it, recognizing since the US and Israeli strikes back in February that Iran realizes that it now has leverage in any future negotiations, and it's sort of applied that leverage by restricting the passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz. And now here Trump is trying to take control and do the same thing. So as I say, the process is unclear of how exactly this is going to happen and whether countries are going to pay up this 20% charge, how it's going to be policed. It's all uncharted territory, as it were, at this stage.
Jagruti, has Pentagon actually or State Department said anything yet about Trump's Hormuz plan and how this would actually work on the ground? I heard you said there are not many details, but is there any update also on that?
Yes, I think, look, on Capitol Hill, you have a lot of different opinions on how the United States should be handling Iran. I think with the memorandum of understanding that Iran said that it would make the transit, it would make, all provisions to try to afford ships transit through the strait. The memorandum of understanding was very unclear. And I think a lot of Republicans who were more hawkish on Iran, for example, like the late Lindsey Graham, may have been very unhappy about the vagueness of the memorandum of understanding, the idea that the United States might be giving away too much to Iran and too much power and control. And so I think with the resumption of strikes between the US and Iran, and now the US President Donald Trump saying that it's going to impose these 20% charges on ships passing through the strait, I think there will be some sense of those who are more critical and want the US to take a strong, tough military position on Iran, that a sense that the US is asserting that position of strength. But I think there are still questions about what this would mean for the supply of oil and for the wider global economy. Some analysts suggesting that it would be catastrophic to charge tolls through the Strait of Hormuz because of the effect it would have on the supply of oil and the ships passing through that strait. And again, questions about whether countries are going to be willing to pay those charges, given that this is an international waterway and there's a lot of reluctance to put charges on an international waterway that many are suggesting would go against international law.
And do you have any updates on reactions so far from Gulf allies who Trump suggests should be actually footing the bill?
I think, look, a lot of Gulf allies are going to be similarly concerned about charges that are going to be levied. I think Gulf countries are worried about the escalation, the recent escalation between the US and Iran. It's in their interest to see peace and to see stability return to the region, because of course the Strait of Hormuz is the main waterway for transiting of oil, and there are, as we've discovered and we've talked about before, few alternatives. Saudi Arabia has a pipeline, but it does not carry as much, near as much oil as the Strait of Hormuz carried in the pre-war heights of transit through the strait. And so I think there are lots of question marks here and lots of concerns that neighboring countries have over both the tensions, the assaults, the tit-for-tat strikes between the US and Iran, but now also the question of who has control over the Strait of Hormuz. This is a stalemate at this point, and I think one of the reasons why mediators are scrambling to try to bring both sides back to the negotiating table to resolve some of this lack of clarity and try to push forward to something that might look like a longer lasting peace.
Okay, Jagruti, thank you for the insights and thanks for being here on Asia One with us.